Let's go for it.
This
Yeah,
entire
this hangout
life.
on air is live. Thank you for joining me and my friends here at OreAni to the end of 2018 fall season. With us today, we have Ace,
So
Albert,
Hello.
Nick,
Hi.
okay, and me, along with our good pal Vincent H. He's going to be joining us on the YouTube chat. He had some technical difficulties, but everything should be great. Everything's going to be all right. Hope you all had a nice holiday with the what do you call that thing? Christmas? Christmas
Yes,
for some.
oh, I thought it was Kwanzaa.
it started after Christmas. Still going on now, I believe.
We're going to start the year off the right way with zombies.
The year hasn't ended
Da-da-da.
yet.
That's like tomorrow, or no, the day after.
That's close enough.
Yeah, well, it's our last video for OreAni this year. So we're going to have, how do you say that?
But
Zombie
wait. If you did the
Saga.
title on the second recap video, then it would be in the new year.
Zombie Lando Saga.
It would have finished
Yay!
it by then.
So, zombies are always depicted as these gruesome things, but, when it becomes an anime, you just gotta kawaii it up, right?
Moe, I believe the term is.
Moe. Nah, they're not really moe. I wouldn't call them moe.
Mm.
Well, I mean, once they finally got that makeup on, then I guess you could say they are. But other than that,
So let's go ahead and have you guys talk about it. I didn't watch this show because I'm a
life.
disappointment to Nick.
To me. Sure.
Sure, let's go with that.
Only as an OreAni like host. Like, I like I say, you do the comics, you do the books, you're fine as far as an otaku goes, but how you're on OreAni as a host.
Yeah, especially since it was pretty much rated as number 1, number 2, number 3, somewhere in the top 3 for this season. Some people are talking about it as being the best of the year. I'm not so sure about that, but
Yeah, that I can agree with that.
So who's going to start the discussion on this? Because
Well, I haven't
is it
finished it,
worth
so I think
watching? Is it
I'm
not?
out of the running. I can comment on the half that I've seen, but
okay. So I guess we'll have to go between regular and spoilers. So I'll start.
by all means, go ahead. Like, I'm not too concerned with spoilers.
Zombieland Saga. It makes it seem like it's some sort of epic story about zombies, but in fact, it's a little play on words because there is a prefecture in the southern part of Japan called Saga. So that's what it actually means. When they first started, it's very mysterious. Not a lot of PVs, not a lot of information about what the story was going to be about. You knew that it was made as a collaboration between Studio Mappa, Abex Pictures, and Cygame, which has been sponsoring a lot of anime recently. Most, notably Rage of Bahamut series, but they have been active in the mobile game, and they've been pushing a lot of anime based on their mobile game properties. So, yeah, the basic story, I think I won't go into the basic story, but you know that a girl wake is wanting to become an idol, dies accidentally, and is resurrected as a zombie, I believe, 10 years after the fact that she's dead. And along with her are 6 other zombie girls from different ages, which by itself is a little weird because Japan is a because of Buddhist traditions, Japan mostly does cremations. They don't actually bury their dead. So why she wasn't actually burned when she died, no one knows yet. And as such, they are awakened in this mysterious mansion with this mysterious man, a producer, claims himself. And he says that they are all to become idols and to save Saga. And so it's kind of a mishmash of different genres between zombies, idol anime, kind of a black comedy, and local, like a local scene, because it's not set in Tokyo or any of the major big cities. It's set in, in the country, basically. And it follows them through their rise through humble beginnings all the way to whether they can perform at the major venue, at least in the local sense. So yeah, I picked it up because it was an interesting take on the genre, kind of a mishmash between local idols and zombies. It was original, so not based on any previous properties, which I like. And Mappa is doing the animation, so at least there would be something interesting in the animation category. And I think overall, it started off kind of... it started off interesting, I should say, enough that you kept watching it, and they became famous in like the second episode because of a rap battle. So they're throwing in different genres. There's a scene later in around mid-season where they do auto-tuned singing and all that. And at first, I thought it would be interesting to see how they treated, this genre, a mishmash, and eventually it became a little bit more traditional idol anime. It kind of lost that zombie angle. So I'm not completely sure how successful it was, but it was very popular. It was highly rated. And it appears that the way they ended the season, it seems like there's more story to tell. And I believe that because it has been popular, there might be a second season potential, but nothing has been announced yet. So that's a summary.
Yeah, I would say I really do, agree with it as a summary. I think it brought a lot of interesting stuff to the table, and I can't say that I've seen it all the way through to completion yet because I did fall, I watched a lot and I kind of fell behind like last season, which pushed me back this season and holidays and stuff. But from what I did see from it, what really kind of gripped me was how fresh it kind of kept its content, because it put a lot into comedy. Like when it would come to the producer giving his like speech, usually at the beginning of every episode, or like at the start of every day, however many days go by in the episode. Anytime that guy talked, they got a voice actor where they had it like, they had him play with his rhythm and cadence, and his style was just so intriguing that alone became like almost not like a whole point to watch the show, but definitely not a demerit on my part. It was a charm point of the show. And one of the more entertaining things about it was how it chose to play with zombies, because these zombies aren't going out and biting people, and it's not the apocalypse. I don't think this changes, but from where I was watching the video, they've had some bad experiences with being introduced into society with their secret, like getting out a little bit. So like one of their large things is like they will usually like fall to shambles in like a random way, like either it rains or they literally lose body parts, and they kind of have to collectively work together to hide their secret from the public masses. And how they pull this off is yet another reason why I find myself watching this show outside of its style. I do remember that I think there was that one episode, I think it was like 5 or 4, where they literally had to like drag themselves through the mud. And I was kind of like asking myself, like, how often have I seen an anime where like, I don't know if this made it easier for the animators or not, but they like kind of like monotoned brown everybody except for their like eyes. You know, the eyes are still anime eyes, but they're just like a shade of brown for like, you know, episodic reasons. But that just kind of made me like the show that much more. I don't see that being done too often anywhere else, and so I think it went for this original idea, and it at least did something. Now, did it use it to the best of its ability? Perhaps not, but was it entertaining for being an original? I think so. I also kind of liked how the characters had different backgrounds. They kind of brought that to the table. You know, I don't know what time period the one girl came from, but like the oldest one there, let's just say, because I don't know how to say their age, because I assume they're all like roughly 18 or just a little bit younger. But
she was the oldest by far.
Yeah, but like I don't know, I don't know what era she came from. You can only kind of guess, but it was kind of interesting how it almost had that like time skip element to it as well, because you had characters who were used to the internet and others not, like newer trends and not, and it was just kind of interesting. Like,
So, from what I've gathered, because I was expecting a lot of the same thing, but you've all said it changes a lot. So, was there not that many running gags? Because it kind of seemed to me that this would be a running gag type of show that they would do a lot of that.
hmm, running in like what sense? Like, what would you compare it to?
Like, you know how they kind of started off with the whole head banging thing, so maybe like they would continue doing something like that every once in a while in the later episodes, just reusing the comedy.
I can't. I haven't watched it all the way through, so I didn't see them recycle that in particular. Perhaps they do later on. I can't really answer though. But from what I've seen, like it really does diversify. It's not necessarily all about the music. They were very careful to make them seem like they weren't that good at first, as they improved their craft, so to speak, over time. And it didn't get stuck in one genre, I wouldn't say. Like, it didn't stick death metal. It kind of went, as Albert was saying, like pretty mainstream idol. But like the process getting there was pretty entertaining because of the twist into the genre here.
Yeah. I will say though that for the comedy part, just like I don't know what his name at the moment was saying they did seem to stray away from comedy, and they went more back into the idol concept, and that just kind of what seemed to turn it off for the most part to me. So they started getting away. I haven't completely watched it. I'm only one episode away. But what I'm saying, they seem to have gotten away from it all, from what they were originally going after.
So, at the end of it all, is it something that you guys would recommend, or is it just enjoyable to yourself?
The long-term fans, I'd say absolutely. As a gateway, I'm not so sure. That's my take on it, though. Albert?
I would still recommend it. I think it's interesting enough. There's a couple of other things I wanted to mention too. So let me just bring up. Oh, and in answer to your question, Nick, Yugiri zombie number 5, the oldest at 20 years
Oh,
old.
okay.
She is from Bunkyu, which is pre-Meiji. So she technically died in 1883, according to the wiki
Cool.
for her. So that is a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of like what you were getting earlier with like the cremation and whatnot. You know, you not to spoil too much. I don't really think so, but there was a cast member who was later brought back as a zombie who was pretty much died in a very cremation like process.
Yeah. And let me see, share that. So I just wanted to bring up a couple of things. One is about Zombie Zero, which is Tae. Okay. And when she was first introduced, it just says the legendary Yamada Tae, which everyone else had like, a subtitle saying, which legend they were. Like Junko was the legendary Showa idol, right? Yamada Tae, no one really knows. And they haven't really gotten into her backstory. And she's actually the only one that doesn't have a actual speaking role. Everything to date has kind of been like grunts and
I think
parodies of speaking, right? And she makes sounds like she's kind of speaking, but they're all like jumbled and it's nonsense. And I find it interesting that she's actually voiced by Kotono Mitsuishi. She's a very famous actress, a narrator and voice actress, and she did Usagi from Sailor Moon. So she was Sailor Moon, right? So they got this legendary person to perform the legendary Yamada Tai, and all they asked her was, make these sounds. And yet, despite all that, you kind of get it. You kind of get all the acting that she's putting into all these non-word sounds.
See, I remember you saying something like that at the early, early impression, OreAni, like 3 months ago. But I was kind of wondering if she actually does awaken at some point or not. But I see.
She has not awakened at all. I think she's literally just there to be the comedic relief half the time. She has stopped dividing people, which I think was her best comedy joke or run up. Yeah, I don't care. But she has stopped that, so it just kind of died.
She's still kind of there, but anyway.
Yeah, I think she got better with like knowing what people wanted her to do as the series went on.
Yeah, so now her biting is more of a friendly biting. Like she bites and chews on Sakura towards the end of the series because it's what she does, right? So the other thing I want to mention is that this is from, what the heck is this episode? It's in the middle of the episodes. But one of the characters that you see shared is Hoshino Lily-chan, right?
Oh.
Yeah, and this is going to be a spoiler for the episode. But turns out Lily, is biologically not a girl. But clearly, like mentally, she is, right? So she's a trans character. And it's the first time that I've actually seen, like, at least the anime I've seen, where a trans character is treated like a normal person with normal problems, not outrageous problems. And she is, treated respectfully instead of as a joke or as a freak of nature or any of that. And so for that alone, I think this series deserves, a round of applause. And it's a really heartwarming episode. And if you don't have a little tear in your eye, yeah, you might want to, get a checkup.
I'm a psychiatrist.
I thought you were going to say for a bit, Albert, that this was the first time you got tricked by a trap.
Don't worry, I think we all did.
Yeah, so there's a interesting online talk about that use of the word trap, because that's a perception of Western audiences about gender bending characters, right? Especially in the sense of, oh, you expected a cute girl, but it's actually a boy kind of thing. But the Japanese don't use that word. The trap is a completely construction of Western culture and their expectations, and in some ways it's kind of disrespectful. So I've been struggling on how to whether to use that word or not. It's easy to understand what you mean by it, but there is no there is no intent of entrapping someone, right? So the Japanese word for it is otokonoko, which means little boy, but at the same time, if you use a different kanji, then it just means a boy that's a girl, right? So Lily is a otokonoko.
They mentioned that in Overlord, didn't they?
Yeah, I believe so. For the twins, but yeah, overall, I would still recommend it. It's probably top 3 of this season, and I think it's worth watching.
So, real quick. So Vincent's made a few comments about how they must have used a lot of formaldehyde on that one girl that's like super old from the 1800s. And he made a comment, thought for sure that all their heads would snap off and roll in that episode. So it's probably when we were talking about the head banging or something.
It's a little bit of a recurring joke, but they don't really. I think like by mid-season, they kind of stop that joke that they fall apart. Right? It's not used as often.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you are all watching on the YouTube chat, but there's been a slight discussion of them. What's the anime of the year right now? So.
Oh, geez. Between two people.
Hey, everybody. I'm only popping in for like half an hour.
Woohoo.
Let's see who.
Let's promote some stuff for Sean then. But hey, Albert, how big is Saga, would you say, since you kind of know Japan a little bit?
I don't know that area very well, so.
But I'm assuming it's kind of small.
It's not that small, but it's in the south, like I said, in Kyushu. So let's see, Saga.
If you're looking for it,
it's actually small.
Saga Shite.
Saga is actually small. It looks like. But just do a search on it, and you'll see where it is.
So they call that person Hoshino. Isn't that Hoshiko or something like that?
What, Lily?
Yeah. So
Lily is Hoshiko. Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and see if we can move on to the next title. What show do you guys want to talk about next?
Remote one first.
Since we were talking about the best anime of the year on the YouTube video, I kind of want to go with this title next. And maybe we can hear from Nick about it. Conception.
The confirmed best anime of the year.
Conception, right?
Yeah.
Nick, you've been watching this, right?
Yeah, I'm currently eating a Twix bar. Yes, I watched it.
It looked terrible when I first saw it.
And, I'm sure if you watched it all the way through, you would still say it's terrible. It's not my favorite title. It's obviously based off a game. And it even actually referenced the very fact that it came off as a game. Like, I remember in one episode towards the end, he had to give gifts to everybody. And one of the gifts to one of the girls was the game that this anime is based off of.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
It's just, yeah, it was kind of interesting because you had, Mana, the floating tanuki, who was very lewd, always coming up with lewd, things. And and stuff. So like half of it you're watching for this kind of like this like open adult humor, and other than that, it wasn't the greatest story ever, of course, but towards the end it actually redeemed itself a little bit in my opinion. But not enough for me to say like to the anime masses fans go watch it. I will say, I commonly ask myself sometimes when I'm watching like a game put into anime form. Like we do know how Fate handled that, right? We had Fate Stay Night, then Unlimited Blade Works. Now, what's the newest iteration of the path that we're watching?
Heaven's Feel.
Yeah, Heaven's Feel.
I always want to say Heaven's Fall for some reason.
So like in that aspect, we know a lot about the Fate story without having to have played the games. But I can't really get that same feeling from any other anime, with like one of the better, not better, but good examples being School Days, and how they animated like a bad end, and that's like specifically what that anime was kind of about. So while everybody hates it because it makes no sense, it's like, oh hey, if you play those games and you know what bad ends are like, here you go in anime form. And I can't really clearly say that I get the feel of this one's route, because it, referenced the fact that it was a game, and maybe in the game the character was given a game. I don't know, but the ending kind of like wrapped it up to me, because spoiler, because I can. The main character thought he had to sacrifice himself after a while to let the childhood friend he came into this other world with go home. And they try to do a plot twist where, no, I don't actually want to die right now, and I'm going to live. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, he does. And when they're going back home, because like he has to choose to stay with the like 12-girl, well, 11-girl harem, or go back home to be a normal person. He's like, yeah, I guess I'll go back home. So they're all there to see him off, and it's don't watch the episode anymore because I'm spoiling the last one right now. Well, as they're about to send him off, the 11 maidens, because the one came from the real world with him. Actually, no, 12, because there was a 13th. They did the 13th constellation tie-in. They're like, oh no, we're actually not okay with this, and I guess they collectively go to like hug him or something as he's leaving, but they all go through the portal, so all the people from this world end up in like the real world, and it's like I almost like needed another episode to see like how well they got into like Earth culture. Like there was like a wedding scene where he was marrying like 13 girls in wedding dresses. So I'm like, yep, this is a video game playthrough. I get that feel now.
To me, when I was watching that and thinking it was terrible, I felt that I probably wouldn't have hated it as much if it was done more as an anime short, maybe like the half episode's like 12 minutes versus a full episode.
Did you actually watch it all the way through?
No,
Oh, okay.
I didn't. I'm just saying though, like to me it seemed to drag a lot, and I was like at the beginning when I was watching it, and then I was like, I don't want to spend all that time watching this show I'm probably not going to like. But if it was like a 12 or short, then I probably would have watched it all.
Like it had this really weird dynamic, because like the plot of the episode was like, I don't know what it would be in the game, but like let's just say at the end of every week or something, you have to go fight the dungeon and try to take down one of the big 12 constellation big bad bosses or whatever. And like the whole time they're like, dude, you need to like flirt with the maidens and make the star children, because like you're not going to live in well, not live, but you're not going to actually beat anything in the dungeon as you are now. So like it had this weird thing where they were trying to rush the character to get with like all these girls, but like at the same time don't be horrible about it. So it's like, what? Like hurry up and seduce them, but like be a good person, kind of.
Yeah, I don't think that worked very well.
Yeah, so anyway, here you go. That's the harem ending there. So, if you watched it all the way through, which I quit after episode 1, but if you watched it all the way through, you get a very different ending than you were expecting.
Yeah.
You get the full harem ending.
And I would say that that's kind of like, yeah, most games you kind of you pick a defined route. You end up with one character, and I was kind of like, maybe this could be one of those games where the whole point was to like, is the ultimate good ending the everyone ending, or can you end up with what? I don't know. I don't have. Well, is this? I think this game might be in the English market. I'm not certain, but I
Yeah,
certainly
it
don't
is.
play H games. Or not saying that this one is an H game, but I assume it would be. But like a lot of times, if you're like getting it through Steam or something, it would be censored to the point where
Conception. I think it was
yeah.
like a Vita game or something.
I think
It's
it was
just like it's just some
PS
quirky
or
JRPG, isn't
something.
it?
Like when they gifted it in the TV series, it was like in a blue case. I want to recall. So
Yeah,
I think
that sounds like a Sony thing.
yeah. So like it was, it was fun for me to watch once. Obviously, I'm not going to recommend it to anybody, but it wasn't the
Recommend it
biggest
to your
waste of my time
enemies.
this season at the same time. So that's all I'm going to say. Like there was some enjoyable things here. Emphasis on some.
All right. Which
I think what
one
really
type?
surprised me was like the guy who did the ending song. It wasn't my first, but it was someone I've heard a lot in other things, and I just didn't think I'd see him aligning to this kind of a show.
Since we have Sean here, should I?
No, because he wasn't
Yeah,
watching a whole lot this season.
I haven't seen anything this season. I haven't finished anything.
Oh, yeah, I
So
forgot. I didn't have the title card, so I was gonna pull that Godzilla thingy again, but okay.
Godzilla thing.
What?
They did like a second anime movie that I haven't seen. The first
Yeah,
one.
I haven't seen any of those, like the
No,
Polygon
I'm just,
Pictures
no, I'm
Godzilla
just
things.
saying at the beginning of the year,
Oh,
since I didn't have the title card, I used the Godzilla title card since it was golden.
Huh.
Okay, I thought you
What
were
else is there?
I thought you were just messing up with, kaiju.
How about this show? The slime show.
How about it? Did anyone finish it?
Well,
Uh,
it's two
yeah.
cores, so it's technically not finished.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's
Oh,
not.
wow,
I've
they're making
seen
a lot
all
of it.
episodes available up until this point, but it's by no means over.
Yeah, we could talk about it. Where'd it go?
I remember people saying that it leaves a good first impression anyway. I mean, does it just still truck along with the slime gag, or does it go places? Or
Well, Vincent says Slime Show wasn't as bad as I thought, so I think that's the general census for everyone. It's like, oh, not another isekai story, and then all of a sudden, people are watching are like, oh, I guess it's not that bad. 'Cause
slime
what
is
did we
OP,
have
please
before
nerf.
this? The Death March, and then the smartphone one, which were both not like super great, but with the slime show in the isekai world, it's done really well. And
Yeah, I'd rather it be completed until I give my actual impression upon it, because then we're just going to talk about it like 6 times instead of 4. But
it's hard to discuss a two-core show. So I can give you a little bit. So that time I got reincarnated as a slime, it started off as a light novel. There's a manga adaptation. This is a light. Wait, is this a light novel cover? Yeah, this is a light novel cover. There is a manga adaptation, which I have been reading. I haven't been reading the LN, and then obviously there is an anime. So one interesting thing that you might note between the original illustration and the manga and the character designs seem to be more rounded, more moe, more cutesified, right?
There's like
So
this progression of like genericness. Like the novel cover looks the most distinctive. At least it looks like super retro, right?
yeah. So that was a concern that I had when they first started. I was looking at the character designs. Also, I had some problems with the original. Wait, hold on. Let me try to pull up another picture. But just looking at the character designs and the promo art, I realized, wait, they're are showing everything from that you could expect more than like one core. So I immediately knew that it was going to be like 2 cores, right? And then in addition to, let's see if this actually goes to, no, it doesn't. So in addition to that, let me switch. You're kind of left with, okay, well, I guess it's going to be, 2 cores. So they should be able to get a fair amount of the story in and also explore some of the topics in the within the story, right? But I found it odd that they were spoiling like characters from much later in the series right at the beginning. So didn't really understand why they were doing that. Usually you'd want to leave it as a blank. They appear in the OP right away. I'm like, why? Why don't
Maybe
you just
because they already have a large source out there with the manga and the light novel, and it's so popular that they felt that.
I could see your point. Like if you're in Japan, it's probably widespread, but like being a spoiled American brat watching this thing, it's like it's not that popular over here. So I could see where Albert's coming from too. Like he was at least exposed to the story before, whereas I think a lot of people watching, and not that Japan should cater to people watching in America, but like anyone not in Japan who watched this anime was kind of like spoiled to a lot of the characters.
Yeah. So, overall, the story progresses like I thought it would. And it just seems tonally it's lighter than what it was originally intended. There are some pretty dark moments in the story, but they tend to be animated differently, lighter, more generic, sometimes glossed over. But they also do go into more than what was available in the manga. Apparently, those scenes were from the light novel, so they are going back to the source material, the light novel, to adapting this. So maybe there is a difference between what I perceived from just reading the manga and from the light novel sources. Some of Shizu's backstory, so things like that. Overall, I think it's a very accessible, very enjoyable story, and there's some genuinely funny moments, especially in episode 1. Destroy my computer bit, right, when I die. Stuff like that. I'm also pretty impressed by what is her name? Mikami. So Satoru Mikami, right? Wait, is that right?
Sure.
No. Sorry, that's the character name. Voice is by Okasaki Miho Okasaki. So when he's in slime mode, that's the voice actress, and she's actually relatively newcomer. She started off in 2017, and she lands this pretty big role this year. And I think she's been doing a fantastic job as Rimuru, the slime. So something to keep an eye out for, I guess. So mostly bit parts up until now. And then she gets this major role, and she's been doing a terrific job. So be on the lookout for the voice actor.
Let's give her a round of applause. I
Yay.
actually like her in this.
So yeah, overall, I would say take a look at it. If you're not in by episode 3, you kind of need to watch at least the first 2 episodes. Don't give up at episode 1, because episode 1 is mostly in the cave and the meeting with the dragon. So
I almost felt like enticed to watch it until I could figure out where the avatar form is implemented. Well, it's not really an avatar, but you know what I mean. The anthropomorphized form came into play.
that comes pretty late.
Yeah, for what the opening would indicate.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything in the chat?
6 out of 10 passable. That's what Vincent says. But
You haven't seen it through yet, Vincent. No, I'm kidding, man.
he's only seen 6 out of 10 episodes. I think he's trying
Oh, really?
I don't know.
No, I know.
I don't think
I
so.
I understand.
But yeah, it's the slime show.
13 episodes are
Sorry,
available
excuse
now,
me.
I believe.
The slime show is the only one I've been watching, or one of the shows I've been watching. I think I've been watching 4 or 5 this season. That I've read a lot of the. I don't know if it's the light novel or web novel. They have it marked as web novel when I read it online, but it's probably like the light novel adaptation.
Like no affiliation to the site or something. Just sorry, I just noticed this. I pulled it up on my anime list just to give me some stats, and I couldn't help but notice as I scroll down that I heard about them doing this earlier, but my anime list apparently has a manga store, and I don't know exactly how it works because I'm not too interested in buying. But all the volumes of the manga are available, I'm guessing in English, on sale right now for they're half off. They're like $6. So if you want to buy a bunch of manga in an internet store for this thing, now's your chance.
I think is it Yen Press that's releasing the light novel right now?
I'd have to blow up the image to try to get. Oh wow!
Not sure.
The preview opened a whole another tab.
It's a fun show. I myself would recommend it to some people versus the other isekais.
Yeah, there are many bad isekais, as we all know. So, yeah, Yem Press is doing the light novel adaptation to English. Currently, I'm not sure how many volumes are out by Yem Press, but yes, they're doing it.
All right.
Looks
See,
like
what title should we talk about next? Let's pull up another show from this list here. We got Zombieland. Oh, there's Albert's list.
What?
You have a list, Albert, don't you know?
Oh, SSS Gridman. Let's do that.
Let's do some SSS Gridman.
Gridman. I don't know.
Well, why not?
Where's all the S's? I don't see any S's here. Just a bunch of lines.
Yeah, the title is stylized that way for whatever reason.
So did this complete, or is it like one episode left? Or
No, it's done airing.
It's completed last week, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the what is it? The Studio Trigger show, right?
Mainly Trigger. There was a sub studio here really helping out, but they didn't really get a ton of credit for whatever reason.
It's based off some anime training project thingy. It's like that series that Studio Kara did, isn't it?
Yes, they did a short at that point, I think, and
Yeah,
then
I remember seeing that one anyway.
Yeah, so the backstory is that the director, Akira Amemiya, he wanted to do Ultraman. He was really, he wanted to do tokusatsu in anime form, right? And so he went to the production company, right, behind the Ultra series and said, hey, I'd like to do this. And they said, no, you can't. However, we do have this other property, Gridman, that you can do. And so, he did the original animation, right, for Japan Expo Animator Expo, like Sean mentioned, and since then decided to do a full series, and that's how Gridman came to be. So Gridman is based on a tokusatsu, meaning live action, people in suits, right, suit actors, and they duke it out and all that. You can read about it on the internet if you want. And so it was interesting to see how this was going to be adapted to the animation style. And for the most part, they were pretty faithful to a lot of tokusatsu tropes and action scenes, and how randomly, the main character would appear in giant form and like do a backflip or things like that, right? So it's very it's deferential. They're making an homage, but at the same time, there was some controversy in the middle because certain people who actually worked on the tokusatsu side of things, or actually that's not true. It's Obari was they're taking tropes out of like the genre, and one of the previous directors felt that it wasn't a homage, it was almost a ripoff of his previous works. So this became he apparently made the comment on a Chinese social network, right? Sean, you know a little bit about this?
Nope.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I mean, I recognize the name Obari. Is he the guy behind the Obari pose, like that animator?
Yes. Yes. So there's a little bit of controversy about that. And he apparently went on a Chinese social network and kind of, said,
Of all places.
I kind of consider this insult because they're just copying, right? And so that kind of got back to whatever. That's a whole nother story. I think Kevin over at Sakuga Boru covered it. So you can go over there and read about it. I knew it from some of the comments being laid out. So yeah, overall, I thought it was a fresh take on the genre. You don't really see it's a mashup, right, of anime and tokusatsu. I thought they did a pretty unique take on it. Each episode, a little bit of the mystery, is revealed. Each episode, a little bit more of the behind the scenes, what's going on, why the subtitles for each episode was picked. All of that is gradually revealed. And this is Trigger back in, good form after Darling in the Franxx debacle.
Debacle.
Yeah,
I never finished that one.
I consider it a atrocious mess, Darling in the Franxx. So anyway,
would you say that's because of A1 or just
no? Both parties are
equal to blame. We don't know who wrote the script more, but.
Yeah. But I think if you watch this all the way through and you realize what's happening by about episode 10-ish, it really does follow all the way through the themes that it set up, the payout, it ties back into the tokusatsu Gridman. So even if you don't know the original, which I never watched, I'm like, oh, this is where they're going to, and the way it ends is, I don't understand why people say I don't understand what happened at the end because it's pretty clear to me, but maybe that's because I've familiar with all these genres.
Mm-hmm.
But the girl that is the cause of all the world's problems, basically decides to grow up and face her problems, and that is how it ends. And Yeah, you just need to watch it and appreciate it for what they did. And I think it's a very tight story. There are those trigger moments, there are the Obari moments, there are the Tokusatsu moments, and there obviously is fan service moments. Delicious swimsuits. So go look it up on the internet. You'll see plenty of that.
So again, I think Albert wasn't going for a huge spoiler, so I'll avoid it too. I'll say that while I completely understood the ending, I don't know. I'm not trying to say like it doesn't sit well with me, but for an animated series, it felt a lot like a movie that had like, you know, no correlation to the thing it was based off of, which is kind of going on here, right? It's based off an Ultraman thing. So, and they did their own spin on it. So despite having a very odd movie-esque ending where you just have to send the characters off to whatever, honestly, it's probably the first thing that Trigger put out that I really want to buy. Like, yeah, Darling in the Franxx, it had its place. It had its, you know, crazy plug suit piloting, you know, mechanism thing, but like I couldn't get into many of the characters in the story. And that was true with Kill la Kill as well and Little Witch Academy. Just it wasn't very endearing to me. And when this one kind of comes out, it just did these things that it's like it's really original to me. And okay, maybe not original, but it's unique. It's very unique, and I don't see that in anime a lot. And I like how they went about telling the story, revealing certain plot elements, and a lot of the banter and not so much the animation, but you know what they had to do to fill the screen along the way. I guess I like the characters more too. I think they're a lot more relatable than in the weird zany other stories we've had from Trigger, but I just really wanted to kind of give them props here because they've been around for a while, and while I enjoyed their stuff, it's not like make it into my collection kind of enjoyed. And I finally have like seen something come from them of that. So
Just admit it, Nick. You just like giant robots.
uh I don't know. Like it's not, I mean, sure, I like the giant mech genre in general, but like I like a lot of sci-fi stuff. And this one just, you know, not trying to spoil too much, but it kind of dealt with a lot of characters' motivations and how they see the world. And there's a lot of commentary that the viewer can have on that, but that's up to the viewer who's watching. And I just liked it. Like there's this one scene where he gets talked to by like a kaiju who was apparently around before all this started going on. Like, yeah, I wasn't brought in by the god, but I was like here beforehand. And she's like, but like it's like just how it went about doing stuff. It was just so like maybe Trigger, but I just enjoyed it all the way through. The ending, I'm a little like, okay, it's an ending. I get it. And I told you my bit about it. It feels like it kind of like, you know, I watched the oh, what was that? The Mazinger show or whatever, and it was kind of like the same thing there. They just kind of had to wrap up a movie. You know, they used the characters, they told you a story, but at the end of the day, movies like that tend to, you know, kind of go nowhere. Like, you know, think about like the Index film or any like the Inuyasha films. They just can't be part of the main story. Whatever happens in the movie, they'll never reference usually in the TV series. It just kind of had that whole element near the ending of this show, but it's not a huge complaint on my part. Just I like if it had a different ending, I could have been probably a lot more happy with it, but I'm by no means complaining.
Interesting, because I you know, I'm of the opinion that it had to end that way. Like the ending is what gives the entire series meaning. I kind of feel that's important thematically.
Yeah, if it were to end in any other way, there was things that had to be different earlier in the episodes. I'm not saying I saw a different ending. Just you know, if they resolved it, if another team handled this thing and they told the story differently and they had a different ending, but like a lot of other things were the same. Again, I'm not complaining about the ending. Just I can kind of see how I could see like why a lot, because like usually anime doesn't end that way. Normally you're telling a story, like, you know, like Angel Beats has like this impactful story it wants to tell, or it just doesn't usually end the way this show does.
So, real quick, Vincent H made a comment about how Gridman was really popular amongst the cosplay community.
Hmm.
I guess I admit I saw quite a bit people posting some cosplays of
I
some
think he
some
was talking
Twitter
about
accounts.
Frank's, right?
No, no,
Frank's
even this show was pretty popular for cosplay. I saw a
Oh,
lot of
really?
it.
Well, it
Yeah.
kind of came out later in the year. Most conventions that I'm used to happen earlier in the year. So
Yeah, I'm like, did you just come back from an anime convention?
No, I mean on Twitter, there's
yeah, social
people
media.
posting a lot of Twitter pictures of it. I've seen at least.
Which I would be impressed to see. I just haven't seen it in person, but I've seen.
But I guess he did say Frank's cosplay too. Yeah, I guess he was talking about the Frank's cosplay, but I've seen quite a bit of cosplay for this show. And the only other thing I would ask is like, because I only watched the first three episodes, and would you recommend I finish it up, or if I couldn't get motivated by it, I probably shouldn't? Or how would you say?
What, this show?
Yeah.
Gridman? Definitely should. I think, animation wise, they did some really neat stuff. And the the way they use 3D models and incorporate it into anime is it's getting better and better. And so you can appreciate the show from different perspectives, including just pure animation, the way the story is, um, the the way the, the way they reproduced panels from like a tokusatsu image. All that is really interesting, I think. But and I think really Trigger is back in form with this one. I'm not sure about what they're. Oh yeah, they're making a movie, aren't they? But anyway, yeah, I think it's Trigger back in form, and it had a lot of interesting elements, story and animation wise. So definitely worth a look.
I mean, I would say honestly, try to finish it. But if you feel like it's a chore to finish, then don't. But there was some cool stuff that happened here. Again, I think I'm still of the opinion that I would recommend it to people who are well versed in anime more so than a gateway show. But like this was a really, I don't want to say like special and unique, because I know if you look across anime, there's stuff like this that there's unique stuff all the time, and this one isn't quite as great as it, but I've seen its concept done before in more movie like ways, so that I just keep like thinking of this as like that's that's what it like hit me as, is like I've seen this movie plot element before, but it's kind of cool in anime form.
Okay. Next title, Tank.
I'm looking on the list to see what else we got.
Deep sigh. It's all downhill from here.
We might as well talk about this because I was actually interested in this.
Hmm.
Like, and I'm actually surprised you watched it. Uchi no Maid,
Oh, Uza made?
or what? Uza?
Yeah, it's
Oh, there
uh
it is. Yeah.
let's see.
I don't know if
Uchi no Maid got Uza Sugiru.
I'm gonna mute up on this one because I might try to check it out before next week.
Is this a good show?
So like hit me up in like the hangout chat when you guys, or not hangout, but you know what I mean, in window chat when you guys are done.
Right. So, is it a good show? That's that's questionable. But
Honestly, didn't think this was a show that you would have your name marked under.
yeah, so I started watching it because it was early on. It was touted as pretty comedic, and it had a ridiculous premise, right? So I don't have a picture of it. Weird. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's a show about. Mm, what is the show about? Because that's a good question. Because what you do see is that a uh, someone older woman, decides to become the maid of this blonde-haired Russian girl, and I mean girl, right? She's in like third grade, I think, and becomes the housekeeper, the maid for the family, and uh, and the lady who the lady the lady who becomes the maid is a lolicon, right? There's no getting around it. So Takana Kamoi is what's the first name? Tsubame, right? So Tsubame Kamoi is ex-military, ex-self-defense force, and you find out pretty soon, early on, that she's got like special forces level skill at hiding and observation, um, surveillance, and is super buff, like ridiculously buff to boot, right? And on top of that, she's a lolicon, so she's like, "Hey, if you have your period, I'm not interested." That kind. And so it borders between really funny moments, and once you step back from it, you're like, should I be laughing at this? Because this is really kind of not cool.
Did
Right?
this pop out of some like anime idea generator or what?
No, it's a manga. It's an ongoing manga. Right?
Kind of an anime idea generator.
Yeah, so Misha is the Russian girl. Her mom remarried to a Japanese man, and that's why this is like a complete stereotype of what Japanese think of as Russians, right? Um, and then on top of which, her mom passes away, so now the little girl is all alone. Technically, she has a father, but it's a stepfather, right? And so the antics happen because Kamoi is totally in love with Misha, and is like always asking, "Hey, when can we get married?" That kind of level. And Misha is totally, not having any of that. On top of which, she still hasn't gotten over her mother's death, and has been a hikikomori. She hasn't been going to school. So, on the one end, you have the heartwarming tale of a maid that causes her care for girl to open up and start going to school, start making friends, and becoming accepting her mom's death and overcoming that, right? And then on the other hand, you have really weird lolicon pedophilia type stuff. And I believe there was a little bit of a controversy in the middle of the series, somewhere around, I think, episode 6 or 7. In the credits, they always list people and organizations that contributed, right? And Comic LO was mentioned in the credits. And for those of you who don't know, do not Google it. All right, Comic LO is a hentai manga that is focused on elementary school. That kind of stuff. So
it's a Lolicon manga. Like something I remember about a Japan trip was walked into a 7-Eleven and I saw it there on the shelf. I was like, holy shit. I had no idea they have these at convenience stores.
Yeah, they do.
I learned something about Japan that day.
Oh God. So yeah, it's.
So, are you saying that this thing was so toxic, did it cause other sponsors to leave, or
No, I don't know. I didn't. I don't know what happened. You know what the what the result of that was, but it was mentioned. Like seriously, this is. But then again, this was like a late night anime, I think. But it just doesn't. When you're watching it, it's it's funny because it's so ridiculous. But then if you take a step back, you're like, I don't really feel so good about laughing about all this because Kamoi is essentially worming her way in and stalking the little girl. So anyway, it's funny on the surface level, but if you think about it too much, you're going to have issues. That's all that I'm saying.
I love it when anime pretends to have values when it's actually like totally depraved, and there's no amount of like feigning values to like overcome that.
Many anime are like that, right? It's a juxtaposition that you see, and that's part of what makes it anime and manga. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who I was following. Someone on Google Plus would post pictures every once in a while about this show. And I saw that there were other maids that are appearing, or at least some other girls that looked like they were maids, and it made me like, what's going on with the show? 'Cause
Yeah, later on there's another maid that shows up who used to be Kamoi's technically superior, I think, but is a complete masochist and wants to marry Kamoi herself because she feels Kamoi will abuse her the best.
so they're adding more fetishes into this show.
Yeah, there's a bunch of fetishes in here. Yes.
Okay, so basically, if you want to learn everything that's wrong with Japan, watch this show.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not I'm not defending anything.
So Vincent H. Wrote that this is serialized in monthly Action Comics, and it's geared for older readers, and it's pretty risque. Yeah.
Action Comics, I think, is a seinen manga. Anyway, seinen manga magazine.
I was actually really interested in seeing how far the show would go when I first saw episode 1. And then when I got to episode 2 and then 3, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
So, yeah.
I like to imagine that Comic Law is on the production committee. They were constantly demanding that they put more molestation scenes in it.
Yeah. So it's it's labeled as a comedy with a Yuri subgenre, but it's also the catch copy is a heartwarming tale of a hentai housekeeper versus a Russian elementary, I guess, a school child home comedy. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, Crunchyroll got it right this time, right?
I don't watch it on Crunchyroll, so
yeah,
we should move on.
Yeah, let's just jump to the other side. Let's just jump into Goblin Slayer next, I guess.
I feel like you could make a instead of like best anime of the year, you could also do like most depraved anime of the year. Like they're starting to be a lot of contenders in that category. Like Goblin Slayer, the Maid Thing, Happy Sugar Life.
Oh,
But anyway, I gotta go. I'll talk to y'all later.
all right. Happy
Hey.
New Year.
Can you
Yeah,
bring up
Happy New Year's.
Happy Sugar Life and not the Magic Girl?
Happy Sugar Life. I celebrate it every year. All right. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Yeah, so next up we have here on the list is Goblin Slayer, which according to Crunchyroll, it was the #1 simulcasted show
Oh, yeah, probably watched by most of the mass.
in the United States, thingy, whatever. I got one of those emails sometime, like the third week into this series, or the season, I should say. And
Yeah, very popular. And then at the beginning, controversy, and then Crunchyroll. So, right?
Yeah.
'Cause, there was no warning labels at the beginning, and people watched the first episode and they're like, "Oh my god!" and lost their freaking minds.
Wait, there was warnings on the first episode. It said,
No, there wasn't. Not when it first aired. There was no warning. And then after that, they got such blowback that all the episodes have a content warning.
Oh,
It could also be like a per service thing. Like it might not make it necessarily to the video. Like it could be a video stream. It could also not be a video stream.
so this is a. What did it come from? A light novel first, I think.
Yeah, it's a web novel technically, but yes, it became a light
Yeah,
novel.
And I think
Inspired.
J Novel is the one that has it right now. That's translating it.
Okay.
And then it became a manga. Or maybe it's Jen person.
What? Who's playing background stuff?
I'm not playing background. Someone's having a conversation in a nearby room. I can't do anything about.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, Goblin Slayer. It's based on a light novel, web novel that became a light novel. Won some awards and became a manga adaptation is ongoing, and became an anime. So this is back to old school, like dark fantasy, I guess. And what I can, I was reading the manga and enjoying it. And you could clearly see the influences that RPG games like, Table Talk RPG, like Dungeons and Dragons had on this, because it's not JRPG. Okay. So there's no talk about leveling or increasing your level. There's no talk about I need to acquire this skill to hit this character class. No, it's just old school fantasy. And the controversy happens because right in the first episode, a party of starting adventurers, except for one, actually two of them get murdered. One is raped, and the surviving priestess is obviously traumatized. But all that happens in the first episode, and you might not be expecting it. And it's it's problematic on different levels, I think, because in the manga, in a illustrated panel, you can't show movement, so you have cutscenes, essentially a series of cutscenes. But in the anime, when you try to recreate that or try to show certain things, it becomes really awkward. And I think part of the problem with this is that they're trying to, do everything at once. Story-wise, yes, it's. I don't think they're being edgy on purpose. That's how the story is. It goes back to old school, thoughts of evil creatures are evil, and there are people on the other side trying to kill said evil creatures. End of story. It's not like you go back and read something like Lord of the Rings. Why are the orcs bad? Well, because they're the minion of the Dark Lord and they are simply bad. You kill orcs. End of story. It's that kind of mentality, black and white mentality. So it doesn't, jive well with the current generation that grew up thinking orcs can have a civilization, orcs can be good characters, or there should be some orcs in there that are actually good. None of that. It's just in this world, goblins are pure evil, and they must be destroyed at all costs because they will breed you out. And the way they breed is they rape other races, and the kids that come out of that union is a goblin. End of story. So it's a very black and white world, and people don't like that. But that's just the way the story is. So, like I mentioned, Priestess, the girl that you see there, voiced by Yui Ogura, really cutesy voice actor. She is the only one that survives the first encounter and is saved by Goblin Slayer, the guy in the back with all the armor, and decides to hang out with him and help him because at first she's kind of worshiping him as her savior, but also recognizes he has some problems and she wants to kind of help him. And as the story progresses, they gain other party members and they go on goblin slaying missions, right? Basic premise. The problem I have with this series is that they inverted some episodes. So I actually have not finished this series. I'm at episode 9, I think. And I have problems with this because by inverting the order of the story, it makes it really hard to animate later scenes, that have now become previous scenes. The character relationships don't exactly match what you see. You have no idea why one character NPC would come and help out another if they don't have a established relationship, which happens in the final arc of the anime, but that's actually the second arc in the manga and light novels. So in the end, I kind of feel like this is a very flawed adaptation, and I think there are real problems with how the studio decided to animate this dark fantasy and adapt it to anime, because some of the choices I completely disagree with, and other choices are questionable, and other choices are just puzzling. So that's my take on it.
For me, Goblin Slayer, like I've been reading the manga as well, and I did notice that they changed some parts of it, and I was kind of really confused about that as well. It's like, wait a minute, why are they heading there? There's this whole thing they're skipping out on, and that brought a lot of confusion to me as well. But overall, I'm okay with it. I don't know if it's because I grew up with you know, watching like Ninja Scroll and stuff like that when you were younger. And those were the movies that were out and they were dark and really messed up as well. So seeing something like this, and also, if you've read Berserk or even saw some of it, it gets pretty heavy into there too, in its darkness. So I don't know if because of how, especially with that cover you're showing, it doesn't show any dark atmosphere. It shows it actually very light.
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
as you get into it, it's a total 180, and I think it's kind of misleading a little bit. They should have probably kept with a dark cover so that people would know kind of what they're getting into. Maybe it would have stopped a lot of that. Dude, why am I watching this type of thing? But um it's okay. Like at first when I was first reading this as a manga, I read the first whole part and I was like not really interested in it and kind of was bored with it. And then when as I pushed myself to read more, when it got more chapters, I did get into it, but I really don't like the Goblin Slayer because his one lines and everything just irritates the hell out of me. I know how the elf feels now. Just yeah, uh, okay, yeah, over and over. So I'm kind of happy that they add more characters because at least we have more dialogue. But I will admit though, when it gets to the action scenes, that's where it's really fun, and that's where I start enjoying the show a lot.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I mean, they did put some effort into action scenes, but even those, I feel, I don't feel like they animated it very well. Their positioning problems, like in the manga, you can kind of forgive things because they're moving around from panel to panel, but in the anime, it doesn't make sense that certain things happened and certain results occur because this character was, in position A when he should have been in position B, or magical events happen that should have come from above, yet you see the effects, the characters from below. I mean, stuff like that. So, yeah, I have some issues. So I'm going to, I'll give you an example of weird decisions. Okay. So this one is from the middle of the series. It's a slight spoiler, but you will see here that from a screen cap that Priestess is severely injured by a giant goblin on her left shoulder. Like she got bit pretty bad. And that's the way it is in the manga, right? And later on, when she's recovering, um, you see that she is sleeping on her left shoulder, right? Um, there's the full scene. So she's sleeping on her left shoulder. Yet in the manga, she's sleeping on her right shoulder. Why is this important? Well, why did they make this change? Because the following dialogue is Goblin Slayer saying, your shoulder healed up nicely. There's no wounds. There's no scar, right? Well, in the manga, it makes sense because she's sleeping with her, left shoulder that was injured up. You could see it. Yet in the anime, she's sleeping on it, and it's in the bed, in the sheets. So the dialogue does not make sense if he didn't like flip her over to check her out, right? So I'm like, why would you do that? Why make the decision change her position and the side that she's sleeping on, especially if it doesn't make the following dialogue make sense? So that's what I mean by questionable choices. You know, I'm listening to the dialogue and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And I had to go back and check it in the manga. So that's what I mean. That the series has made a lot of questionable decisions that I can't agree with.
mm, I did I didn't really notice that, but um oh man, I was going to say something else about this show.
Well,
Um
apparently there was at the end of episode 12, which I have not watched, there's mention of more to come. like more to come in the anime. So no one knows what that means yet, whether it's going to be a season 2 or like a OVA or a movie, but apparently that was mentioned.
So the other thing I think about this show was I totally lost my train of thought now.
Okay. Well, we can move on.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe I'll
before you
remember.
move on, I was letting you guys talk because I had the background noise, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. But I pretty much maintain what I thought from the beginning with this one. While I did watch it, and it's not like I want to go out and buy it right away. It was an entertaining watch, but I just hate how it was all about goblins. And I know the show's called Goblin Slayer. I expect him to slay goblins, but goblins are usually made, like we see the other adventures mentality towards them. They're kind of a lesser threat. We have bigger things to deal with. And whenever they depict these guys, they're always like, it just seems like they're a much more imminent threat than the adventurers like to take them to be, which is why I kind of wanted to see at least a little um, animation on, well, how much of a bigger threat is the other stuff that they're wasting their time with? Well, not wasting their time with, but, doing their dutiful quest to keep the world kind of somewhat safer. So just because it didn't really depict any other creature in the lore, I'm kind of like, I really wanted to see that, like, just so I have some kind of something to ground it in. And I mean, we had a few other creatures here and there, but not to like the extent of knowing what adventurers really were trying to invest their time in with the higher ranking gold quests. But that was just kind of my qualm about the series. Otherwise, I really don't have any complaints. One thing I did kind of want to mention, just because it's right up my alley, is I noticed that there was an artist who has done one other anime song who did the intro to this one, and it kind of like took me an episode or two to catch on. I'm like, wait, no, I know this person. She did an opening to the not so popular Chinese animated Blood of Wars, because I think she is a Chinese artist who does a lot of American dub stuff. Well, maybe not dub. I think she actually tries to sing in English a whole bunch. Not that I'm faulting her, but Miri actually did the intro to this one, and it was kind of weird because like I've heard Miri before, and she kind of seems like whimsically. Like a lot of her songs are about a concept or like a topic. Like you just kind of have to know some of her songs to know what I'm talking about. But I don't think this was like a really good breakthrough for her. But I'm not saying it's a bad song, but I don't think the opening was quite catchy for what I know her to kind of put out. But this is technically only the second anime one of her songs got featured on. But like in another one of her CDs, she actually did a cover of the Evangelion's "Come Susur Todd." Not that that's super relevant right now, but
So are you talking about the artist for the OP?
yeah, the song artist specifically, not like the animation or anything.
Are you sure? Because I'm seeing this as they're a band. They're a band made out of the following people: someone named Momokashu, Yamato Kasai, Yukihito Mitomo, Shoto Yoshida, and Ame Yamaguchi, Ao Fujimori.
I got you. She is, I guess, the main vocalist. So I was just
the vocalist. Okay.
yeah. I guess I just assumed that was the vocalist name and it wasn't like a band, but since it's most likely Chinese, it could just be the name of the band. But yeah, I mean, I don't think she composed all of the tunes herself, but she definitely is the only person I've ever heard singing in anything I've heard from the group.
Mm. Yeah, it says that the vocalist was born in Beijing, China, but is actually going to university in Canada and has a Canadian citizenship.
Cool. Wasn't
and
aware.
Is a software programmer by, or at least that's what she was studying.
But yeah, I do kind of look forward to maybe more of her stuff coming out. Not that I'm like trying to advocate a whole bunch. It's just I stumbled in upon her as an artist because of Blood of Wars, and it was, I think, that was one of her few Chinese songs. The vast majority is kind of English dub, or not dub. It's like sung in English, but it has this English sound to it. And this was just one of the first ones for incidentally not a Chinese studio animation. So I didn't know if there was like a direct correlation with that, but I was like, hey, I almost imagine that a lot of her stuff would have been used by the Chinese studio, but apparently not. Because like Goblin Slayer was pretty mainstream, and I don't think mostly done in China, but I'm not super familiar with their studio.
Right.
All right, let's do one more title and then we'll end the stream. We'll save the rest for next week. But I just gotta get this up because I love the pictures that have been posted about it, and I see that you've watched it. I think Himote House.
Okay.
What is this show about?
Oh boy, what is it about? So it's a short anime to begin with, and it starts off. Hold on a second. Let me grab where's the screen cap? There we go. So share screen, app window. Okay. So Himote House is a kind of a bizarre show because basically it's about these 5 girls who all live in the same house. It's a share house. 3 of them are sisters, and 2 of them are friends of one of the sisters. So the show starts off with the orange-haired girl Tae joining the house and finding out that her friend Kokoro, who is the green girl, she's wearing a green. You can't really see on this, a green parka or hoodie. Has 2 sisters, Tokyo, the one in purple, and the other one was her Kinami, the one in the pink on the far right. And they end up sharing a house. So it's a room share situation, only to find out that they all have supernatural abilities. Like, wait, what? I don't understand this genre, but Tai has the ability to clone herself. Minamo, who is the other girl in blue with purple hair, she has the ability to copy other people's abilities. Kinami has energy beams. Tokyo can stop time. And Kokoro can read minds. Right. So you're like, what is this trying to do? But it's basically them just, having random moments as they share the house and live in the house. And it's divided usually into like 2, sometimes 3 segments of their daily lives, and trying to go out and date, I guess, have a boyfriend, but they all fail. So it turns out Himote, I'm like, what does that actually mean? Moteru means to be popular, or especially with the opposite sex, right? Himote, when you add he in front of a word, it often means the opposite. So it just means the unpopular girl's house. And the segment is them often failing because they're very quirky personalities, being able to, relate or hook up or make an emotional connection with the opposite sex. They're often just depicted as, blank people, right? Blank men. And then the girls having a talk at the end, when they're at the end of the day, they're all like in their pajamas and just gabbing about things that happened, or having little quiz shows, because the cat is also part of the family in the house, and the cat has a supernatural ability to talk like a person. That's it. So it's just a series of gags and comedic moments. Not sure. Yeah, it's just a 10, 11, maybe 12-minute episodes each. And I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone, but I did find it entertaining to hear them have conversations about totally inane subjects, and having weird game show like things. It's like, oh yeah, let's play Pictionary but with a twist or something like that, right? Or they'll quiz each other's, and there'll be weird situations. So it's a sitcom at best.
I don't know why, but I kind of think of Lucky Star when you said that. Like that first episode where they're just sitting around just talking about food.
Yeah. And it's set in a particular region, which is why Bunny Evans was interested in it, because it's his neighborhood that he lives in. It's the Nakano district in Tokyo, and many of the places depicted are real places. And in the opening, there's a scene where, let me see, I think the next picture, yeah. Nakano Broadway is kind of a mall with all kinds of otaku things. So it's like going to Akihabara, but instead of going like from each block to the next block to the street over, everything's contained in a little mall. So I went there this past month when I visited Japan, and it was certainly interesting. And there are places that you can buy used goods, a lot of recycle shops, a lot of manga. There was even a shop that was selling cell animation, right? The cells from the cell animation days. Yeah, so it was an interesting place. But back to the show, Himote House takes place in the Nakano area, and so all these scenes are real places that you can go visit yourself if you're ever in Japan.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So on Mal, it has a well, that's bad, 5.78 rating.
Well,
Oh boy, with 10,000 people considered members for watching, I guess, pretty bad. But again, it's a very niche, anime, and it's all like this weird CG, right? So you're not watching it for the animation, you're just watching it for the sitcom value. So your mileage may vary a lot.
I see.
Mhm.
Well, thank you guys. I think that'll be it for today. We'll save some titles for next gathering.
Is that going to be next week?
Yes, I hope next week.
Okay.
OreAni the Gathering.
Yeah, I still have Bunny Senpai.
Yeah, there's a
At
bunch of
least
titles.
that's the only other title I have. At least I may try to watch something else as well, but
Make sure
we
it's
could
the
also.
stuff that we haven't had a chance to cover. Nothing from this week.
Yeah, so I think Jessica, if she joins us, will talk about Irozuku Sekai no Ashita Kara. I think it's called Irozuku Many Colors of the World or something like that. Yeah, we could talk about Bunny Girl Senpai. We could talk about the KyoAni Tsurune, right? The Kyudo archery show. And we
Yeah.
could talk about Yagate Kimi ni Naru, which is Bloom Into You, the Yuri show for the season. So yeah, there's other titles we can talk about.
Bunny Girl, says Vincent H. Yeah. We could get Vincent in here talking with us about Bunny Girls.
We'll have to figure out how to get him. So
with this next coming year, I hope we have more people joining us. We do have that impending deadline, Google Plus being taken down.
in April now. So yeah.
Yeah, so
Although it shouldn't affect Hangouts, but
everyone's still kind of trying to figure out what we're trying to do, right? I made a Discord for OreAni or our anime talk. So you can join us there. Not too much talking goes on there yet, or chatting goes on, but feel free to join and start trying to chat it up. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to work it. I think there's some other groups out there that I think who is it? Zashiki Warashi has started a posting where you can post up your social networks so that everyone can get your information and follow you needed.
Right.
So hopefully we can figure out something to do with this. We've been going strong for almost, I think, for 6 years or so for this anime talk. I sure don't want it to die. I want us to keep on going on. You know,
We'll figure something out.
yeah, but
I would try to quote some anime, but I can't think right now.
the funny thing about it is, since we mostly do it through Hangouts, you almost need to use Hangouts as like the chat app to be in to get informed of this stuff, but it's not really its own social network.
Yeah.
So like everything happens through Hangouts when it comes to, live to YouTube and stuff.
So let's see how things go. And other than that, yeah, next week, I think there's going to be it's usually like almost a whole week off, right, with no anime.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of year-end and New Year specials. So
So it's a good time to get caught up. So everyone have a nice, happy New Year. If you live in Japan, what do they call it, Hatsumoto or something like that? Or
Hatsumode, where you go to the
Mode?
shrines.
Yeah, that. Yeah. So, everyone enjoy themselves. Have a great year. For those that couldn't join us, uh, I want to make a call out to them. I think it was Jessica, Chris Dorses, another one, Tyler, all those old friends of ours, Mona. Uh, who else has joined us?
Nathan G,
Yeah, Nathan G, Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, so hopefully we can all meet up again and have a nice anime talk later on. Other than
Sounds good.
that, bye bye.